So I'm going to read some more from the greatest American speeches. I'm not sure. Okay, so George Washington is the next one. As a quote there from the speech it's going to be. It says, a passionate attachment of one nation for another produces a variety of evils. So I'm going to take that away. And it's from the Farewell Address, 17th of September, 1796. So it gives a little information about him and the speech when it was given and all that. And then next is the actual speech. So this little gray spot here. It says, born 22nd of February 1732 in Virginia. Washington found speaking in public difficult. His false teeth required him to keep his jaws clenched, so he rarely spoke for more than 10 minutes. Nonetheless, he produced noble rhetoric that invested the presidency with great dignity. His farewell address emphasizes the importance of the new union for domestic and external security. Died 14th of December, 1799 in Virginia. Washington's birthday is a public holiday, celebrated on the third Monday in February. As the first President of the United States of America, George Washington holds a special place in history. Born on the 22nd of February, 1732, the son of a Virginia planter, he became a soldier and saw early action in the French and Indian War, 1754 through 63, the bloodiest war of the 18th century. The years 1759 through 75 were more peaceful for Washington, who concentrated on managing his land around Mount Vernon and served in the Virginia House of Burgesses. During this period, he and other landowners felt increasingly exploited and restricted by British regulations, and Washington became vocal in his objections. In the fall of 1760, the British controlled all the North American frontier, and in 1763, France surrendered all her American possessions to Britain and Spain. Conflict between the British and the Native Americans gradually led to worsening relations between England and her colonies, and to the War of Independence itself, which Washington was to play a central role. In 1774 and 1775, Washington took part in 2 continental congresses held by the colonies against British rule, and in 1775 he became commander of the Continental Army, raised by the colonists. In July that year, he began his involvement in the War of Independence, which was to last 6 years. It was under his leadership that the colonies eventually triumphed, notably through the decisive battle at Yorktown in 1781. In 1787, Washington chaired the Philadelphia Convention that drafted the American Constitution, and at the end of April 1789, he was elected president by a unanimous vote of the Electoral College, taking his oath of office on the balcony of Federal Hall in New York's Wall Street. He was president for 2 terms. As president, Washington concerned himself especially with foreign policy. When hostilities between the French and British flared, he insisted on following a policy of neutrality, rather than siding with either. All his powerful farewell address includes a warning against America forming long-term alliances. In retirement, he returned to Mount Vernon, and when he died in December 1799, he was mourned by the nation for months. So this is the speech he did. Friends and fellow citizens, the period for a new election of a citizen to administer the executive government of the United States being not far distant, and the time actually arrived when your thoughts must be employed in designing the person, designating the person who is to be clothed with that important trust. It appears to me proper, especially as it may conduce to a more distinct expression of public voice, that I should now apprise you of the resolution I have formed to decline being considered among the number of those out of whom a choice is to be made. I have the consolation to believe that, while choice and prudence invite me to quit the political scene, patriotism does not forbid it. A solicitude of for your welfare, which cannot end but with my life, and the apprehension of danger natural to that solicitude, urge me on an occasion like the present to offer to your solemn contemplation and to recommend to your frequent review some sentiments which are the result of much reflection, of no inconsiderable observation, and which appear to me all important to the permanency of your felicity as a people. These will be offered to you with the more freedom, as you can only see in them the disinterested warnings of a parting friend, who can possibly have no personal motive to bias his counsel. Nor can I forget, as an encouragement to it, your indulgent reception of my sentiments on a former and not dissimilar occasion. Your union ought to be considered as a main prop of your liberty, and that the love of one ought to endear you to the preservation of the other. Interwoven as is the love of liberty with every ligament of your hearts, no recommendation of mine is necessary to fortify or confirm the attachment. The unity of government, which constitutes you as one people, is also now dear to you. It is justly so, for it is a main pillar in the edifice of your real independence, the support of your tranquillity at home, your peace abroad, of your safety, of your prosperity, of that very liberty which you so highly prize. Citizens by birth or choice of a common country, that country has a right to concentrate your affections, the name of American which belongs to you. In your national capacity, must always exalt the just pride of patriotism more than any appellation derived from local discriminations. With slight shades of difference, you have the same religion, manners, habits, and political principles. You have in a common cause fought and triumphed together. The independence and liberty you possess are the work of joint councils and joint efforts, of common dangers, sufferings, and successes. But these considerations, however powerfully that they address themselves to your sensibility, are greatly outweighed by those which apply more immediately to your interest. Here every portion of our country finds the most commanding motives for carefully guarding and preserving the union of the whole. Your union ought to be considered as a main prop of your liberty, and that the love of the one ought to endear you to the preservation of the other. Observe good faith and justice toward all nations. Cultivate peace and harmony with all. Religion and morality enjoin this conduct, and can it be that good policy does not equally enjoin it? It will be worthy of a free, enlightened, and at no distant period a great nation, to give to mankind the magnanimous and too novel example of a people always guided by an exalted justice and benevolence. Who can doubt that, in the course of time and things, the fruits of such a plan would richly repay any temporary advantages which might be lost by a steady adherence to it? Can it be that Providence has not connected the permanent felicity of a nation with its virtue? The experiment, at least, is recommended by every sentiment which ennobles human nature. Alas, it is rendered impossible by its vices. A passionate attachment of one nation for another produces a variety of evils. Sympathy for the favorite nation, facilitating the illusion of an imaginary common interest in cases where no real common interest exists, and infusing into one the enmities of the other, betrays the former into a participation in the quarrels and wars of the latter. Without adequate inducement or justification, it leads also to concessions to the favored nation of privileges denied to others, which is apt doubtly to injure the nation making the concessions by unnecessarily parting with what ought to have been retained, and by exciting jealousy, ill will, and a disposition to retaliate in the parties from whom equal privileges are withheld. And it gives to ambitious, corrupted, or deluded citizens who devote themselves to the favored nation facility to betray or sacrifice the interests of their own country without odium, sometimes even with popularity, gilding with the appearances of a virtuous sense of obligation, a commendable deference for public opinion, or a laudable zeal for public good, the base or foolish compliances of ambition, corruption, or infatuation. Against the insidious wiles of foreign influence, I conjure you to believe me, fellow citizens, the jealousy of a free people ought to be constantly awake, since history and experience prove that foreign influence is one of the most baneful foes of republican government. But that jealousy, to be useful, must be impartial, else it becomes the instrument of the very influence to be avoided, instead of a defense against it. Excessive partiality for one foreign nation and excessive dislike of another cause those whom they actuate to see danger only on one side, and serve to veil and even second the arts of influence on the other. Real patriots, who may resist the intrigues of the favorite, are liable to become suspected and odious, while its tools and dupes usurp the applause and confidence of the people to surrender their interests. The great rule of conduct for us in regard to foreign nations is, in extending our commercial relations, to have with them as little political connection as possible. So far as we have already formed engagements, let them be fulfilled with perfect good faith. Here, let us stop. Observe with good faith and justice toward all nations. Cultivate peace and harmony with all. Europe has a set of primary interests, which to us have none, or a very remote relation. Hence she must be engaged in frequent controversies, the causes of which are essentially foreign to our concerns. Hence, therefore, it must be unwise in us to implicate ourselves by artificial ties in the ordinary vicissitudes of her politics, or the ordinary combinations and collisions of her friendships or enemies. Our detached and distant situation invites and enables us to pursue a different course. If we remain one people under an efficient government, the period is not far off when we may defy material injury from the external annoyance. When we may take such an attitude as will cause the neutrality we may at any time resolve upon to be scrupulously respected. When belligerent nations, under the impossibility of making acquisitions upon us, will not lightly hazard the giving us provocation, when we may choose peace or war, as our interest, guided by justice, shall counsel. Why forego the advantages of so peculiar a situation? Why quit our town? Why quit our own to stand upon foreign ground? Why, by interweaving our destiny with that of any part of Europe, entangle our peace and prosperity in the toils of European ambition, rivalship, interest, humor, or caprice? It is our true policy to steer clear of permanent alliances with any portion of the foreign world, so far, I mean, as we are now at liberty to do it. for let me not be understood as capable of patronizing infidelity or to existing engagements. I hold the maxim no less applicable to public than to private affairs, that honesty is always the best policy. I repeat it, therefore, let those engagements be observed in their genuine sense. But in my opinion, it is unnecessary and would be unwise to extend them. Europe has a set of primary interests, which to us have none or very remote relation. Taking care always to keep ourselves by suitable establishments on a respectable defensive posture, we may safely trust to temporary alliances for extraordinary emergencies. Though, in reviewing the incidents of my administration, I am unconscious of intentional error, I am nevertheless too sensible of my defects not to think it probable that I may have committed many errors. Whatever they may be, I fervently beseech the Almighty to avert or mitigate the evils to which they may tend. I shall also carry with me the hope that my country will never cease to view them with indulgence, and that after 45 years of my life, dedicated to its service with an upright zeal, the faults of incompetent abilities will be consigned to oblivion, as myself must soon be to the mansions of rest, relying on its kindness in this as in other things, and actuated by that fervent love towards it, which is so natural to a man who views it in the native soil of himself and his progenitors to several generations. I anticipate with pleasing expectation that retreat in which I promise myself to realize without alloy the sweet enjoyment of partaking in the midst of my fellow citizens the benign influence of good laws under a free government, the ever-favorite object of my heart, and the happy reward, as I trust, of our mutual cares, labors, and dangers. So that was from George Washington. I think I'll just read that one today because the next speech I think is pretty long as well. That was from George Washington in 1796. So yeah, next time I'll read this one, which is Thomas Jefferson. Hope you enjoyed that. Hope it helped you fall asleep a little bit. Thank you for watching my videos. Yeah, hope it helped you fall asleep.